Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our self-publishing panel. It's going to be in English. It's going to be translated on the screen simultaneously. I'm Thomas Bidaux. I work for a company called ICO Partners. We work with a number of companies who are publishing or self-publishing games. And I will be your moderator for this session. And I will let our different panelists introduce themselves, starting with Véronique.
Hello. So I'm Véronique. My friend called me Vero, and my mom called me Véronique. What can I say about me? So I've started to work in this industry in 1999, so long time ago. And I had the opportunity to work actually in France, but also in the UK, where I'm based at the moment. During those years of career, I had the great chance. I had the great chance to work with a lot of very talented people at various companies. I worked for Ubisoft, Rockstar Game, NCSoft, where I met with Thomas, and work as well for Warner Bros. And at the moment, I'm working for Hi-Rez Studio. So I've always been passionate by game, and that's why I've decided to work in this industry. Basically, what my experience have brought me is I had the chance to create 4 teams from the ground up and lead 3 studios. And today I'm working for Hi-Rez Studio, so it's a company based in the US, but also in the UK. And I'm the global chief operating officer, and I manage teams across time zone and continent. So that's what I'm doing today.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Xiavier?
Hello, so I'm Xiavier Spinat. I'm currently head of publishing at Dontnod Entertainment, meaning I'm in charge of self-publishing 5 of the 6 projects that are developed internally. On top of that, we are also doing co-productions with 3 external partners, so games from external studio that we are going to publish under the Dontnod umbrella. Previously, I did several things, but I mostly spent 12 years in working in Ubisoft, half of that in third-party publishing, and half of that in mobile publishing. So even though I did work in development a bit, most of my experience is on the publishing side.
Thank you. Adrien?
Hello, I'm Adrien. I've been in industry for a bit less than 10 years, so I guess I'm the rookie here. I'm head of marketing and publishing at Shiro Unlimited, which is the publishing branch of Shiro Games. We have a demo, Decarnation, go play it, it's nice. And before that, I was head of marketing and publishing at Shiro Games. We recruited somebody to take this over because it was too much work to have both. And I've been working on pretty much every titles from Shiro Games, starting by Northgard, Darksburg, Waters, and Dune Spice Wars lately. And before that, I was doing some mobile stuff at Gameloft, which was pretty cool too. And I started doing Déchiffrer des lettres mobiles.
Classic. Everybody knows that game.
In France, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let's get started with so the topic is to talk about self-publishing. But before talking about that, what are your respective experience working with publishers or at publishers, and how does it color your experience with working with a third-party publisher?
You want to start? Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
Well, I had the opportunity to work on both sides, I guess. So I think, it's been really great experience when I was working for publishers, but it was a long time ago. And back in the days, it was a really completely different approach because digital revolution didn't happen at the time. So when you wanted to launch a game, you had to start to press your disc months in advance and then try to find a team of hundreds of people to go on the road and manage all the stores individually to get your product at retail. So that was definitely a different world. more recently, I'm more working on game as service. So I've started to work in game and service in 2005, and it's completely a different approach. Basically, the way you are, publishing games, this type of game, than the more short-term, I would say, type of game. So it's different, but I think overall, every publisher has their expertise, and they can really help every individual studios to find, the right audience for them. So I think it's for me, it's like it's when you try to find your psy.
Your shrink?
Your shrink. You need to find the right person, the right match for you, for what you need. And I think when you make games, it's the same, it's like trying to find the right publisher that will help you to really release your game in the proper way, finding your audience and, optimize what you're doing. And that's my experience with publishing, is always successful when you have the right match. But it can be not successful when you don't have the right match.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very interesting. So yes, my experience is that the relationship of publisher and studio is always a challenge, and it can be a good challenge, like helping you optimize and rise to the top. And it can be sometimes a tense challenge when the relationship goes bad, and it happens, of course. As I said, I've mostly worked on the publishing side, and I did manage to get it right most of the time. So it's really a matter of how much you want to invest in the relationship from both sides. But I'm also doing self-publishing now. Mm-hmm. So there you can have the same challenges, meaning it's always a relationship anyway. So instead of being a notion of independence versus partnership between two companies, sometimes it can be the same between people. It's just handling the relationship. And so that I always come back to why are we working together, which is for me important. And I always say that some people are making the game they want and they can. Which talents do they have? Which abilities do they have? What's the team? What's the project? And then this is the project side for me, which is more the studio tasks. And on the publisher side, it's more, okay, but what can I distribute? What is the audience expecting? How much can I get for it? How do you make sure it's distributed as widely as possible in terms of, territories, language, platforms, and so on? And it's a different challenge. Yes, there's an overlap. Like you want to do, let's say, the challenge of localization. It's just, yes, you need the studio to put the translated text inside the game if you want it to happen, but sometimes there's also different area. The question is more the overlap. And here I say it really depends on each relationship, each project, but this overlap is the tense side. It's like you can manage it properly, like really with the testing, playtesting, localization, and also tons of services, and you can manage it badly with like feature creeping and trying like to have some creative discussion about what should be in the game or not. And it's like I would say every relationship, if you don't know where you're coming from, what you're talking about, why are you raising this point, then it can lead to tension and sometimes useless tension, because if you spend too much of your energy trying to win the fight, then you're not spending this energy trying to improve the game and reach the audience and make your game a success. So it's, and as I said, this is true for external publishing, but I've seen it happen sometimes, like ego fights within the same team, sometimes between art or game design and stuff. So just handling the expectation, making sure everyone works harmoniously together is key. So that's a bit, I would say, some of it on publishing, and then maybe a word, yes. We talk about publishing in general, but I have this idea often that video games are not so easy. It's it's an umbrella that's very wide to talk about very different realities. And like a game as a service on PC, and a hyper-casual game on mobile, and a premium narrative game on PlayStation. Okay, they are video games, but somehow the way you do it and the way you make it reach the audience is widely different. So if it were the cinema and TV and YouTube, people would know, even if it's audiovisual, it's moving pictures, okay, but they know it's not the same. But somehow, when it's interactive, we call everything video game and slap a label on it. And so when you're looking for a studio or a publisher, making sure it's a good match, it's also like, are we talking about the same thing? Because sometimes some people have widely different expectations about what a video game is.
Everything is very true and on point. The only thing that I would add is that sometimes having a discussion, even if it's a bit conflictual, is still better than no discussion at all. We receive quite a lot of projects that are looking for a publisher or these sort of things, and usually there are some questions, especially with like developer team that have already 1 or 2 projects before, because they just have a really bad experience with another publisher. Usually it's an American one. So sometimes it happens, and it's kind of difficult for us to. So we gladly answer to their questions, and they are kind of surprised by the services that we offer in what we try to achieve with Shiro Unlimited. But the point is having a discussion on game design, even if it's we're not talking about imposing the publisher visions on the developer projects, but really just to have a constructive discussion that will lead the project to end up in a better place. This is something that is really beneficial for both parties. So yeah, having a good match is important. Having a discussion is at least because developers that didn't heard from their publisher for a few months, or publisher that forgot to launch the developer game on the day it was supposed to. That happens.
That sounds terrible. As an experience, I'm sorry, I forgot you.
the right mail to send.
Oops. But something interesting. Sorry, we need to move on. No. So, something interesting that Xavier was saying is actually. When I joined Hi-Rez studio, so basically the studio was already existing for 10 years and had a very successful game, Smite. And basically when I joined, I realized the publishing was made internally, and I was supposed to help them to develop a bit more on that. And there was a lot of missed opportunity and not optimization. And there's something interesting Xavier was saying about localization. So when I started at Hi-Rez, I realized that they didn't really negotiate the rate of localization. So they had no fuzzies negotiated. They had no log tool. So basically, each time, the dev were testing, and more especially because it's like game as service, so we're usually updating, at the time we were updating the game every 2 weeks. Even if things were going on PTS, the text was just put there and translated. And basically when I started and I joined with my team and I built a team of experts, we reduced the cost of log by 50%. And we increased the quality straight away as well. Because they didn't realize they could optimize, they didn't understand, they didn't know. And I think that's some value as well that, internal publisher or external publisher will bring, but you need to have the right talent. You need to have the expertise. Because when you cannot improvise being a publisher. You can do it, but you will learn. You might make mistake. It might not be super optimized to start with. Like my son, when he's publishing his own game on Roblox, he's like, "Yeah, mommy, why the click-through rate is not that great?" I say, "Who is your audience? Who are you trying to target?" And he's 11 years old, but he's trying hard, and he doesn't understand because he's spending so much money to try to advertise his game, and nobody comes in. And I think it's just because he doesn't have the expertise yet, but it's fine. He's 11, he'll have time to learn. But, the point is a publisher can help you to optimize.
Yeah. So you all are working at companies that are self-publishing and also publishing other people. I just want to go back into the reason why you started self-publishing specifically. Go ahead, Adrien, you're laughing, so you should.
So the date was 2013,
yeah.
And then Steam was very different from today. There was like 5 games released per week or something like that. Today, I think we're at 55 average, which is not the same stuff.
200
per week.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
You need to read this
Yeah. And like
Too many.
Evoland was the first game of the studio. It was kind of self-funded because it was 4 people working on the game for 4 months, so it was pretty easy. And there's also a large part of chance that kind of helped because the game was answering. The game already had been tested, like the game concept, because it came from a game jam and people enjoyed the game, so it was logical to try and sell the game on Steam. And once the game was published and it made some money, then the rest, Evoland 2 came in, Northgard 2. But even for Northgard, I mean, it's you have the right game, but super important, you have the right moment, like 2 weeks after the release of the new season of Vikings, which Northgard is a Viking game, so that helped a lot. I don't know if there are people from Ubisoft, but Settlers did fail a bit early in the year, so it was pretty like there was no strategy game at the time, or not really, and people were kind of disappointed. So like Northgard was just at the right time, the right moment, and it was the right game.
Xavier,
Okay.
why self-publishing?
So on my side, I will try to answer as best as I can, but the decision to self-publish was taken in Dontnod before I joined because they hired me for it. What I can see is that by doing a game with publishers like Square Enix for Life is Strange, or and then Remember Me, Tell Me Why with Microsoft, and Vampire with Focus, Dontnod already had raised awareness about the style and quality of their game. And in fact, they were receiving fan mails, they were receiving already requests from an audience that was not reaching out to the publisher, but to the developer. So in fact, they had already the start of something.
Was it a process? Was it designed that way to?
You would have to ask people that were there at that time, because once again, that was before my time. But what I understand is that they saw that the opportunity was there, and they had also, as I said, even though we still work with external publishers, we still have a partnership with ongoing with Focus, and we are not saying Dontnod will only self-publish. We think that working with publisher is a great experience, but there was also the will from some teams to be more independent, because working with a publisher, it's a partnership and it comes with strings attached. So yes, there's good thing. I mean, there's a negotiation there. Not just, I won't say not just the contract, but also how you work. There's as you say, you want someone over your shoulder looking at, okay, why are you doing that and this? Sometimes it helps. Sometimes you need it because you don't have you can learn from mistakes. So you can have someone that has the longer-term perspective, more experience, so sometimes it's very helpful, but also for some creative, they don't like that, okay, should your character be like this? Like, is it too long? Is it too short? So often, I'm not like the master of metaphor, but often when it's tricky, when video games are a media where you cannot really understand the situation, it's always good to take a step back and try to think with another industry. Sometimes, I don't know, a movie industry or the book industry. And when you think about publishing for books, publishing is not just putting the game in a store. Yes, there is that, but there's also like working with a novelist, for example, and like, do you really want to have 3,000 pages into your book? Like, should you not shorten some of it or make two episodes, 2 tomes? And like, what's palatable to the audience? It's not just the creative dream. It's there's a discussion there, and that has to happen. And I think some creatives are very user-centric and think about their audience. They just don't do it for themselves. Some don't have this maturity, I would say. They work for themselves more, and sometimes don't care that much about the audience, which today I think is not possible. Like you really need to think about your audience if you want to reach it. I mean, you can have a stroke of luck and reach an audience by mistake, but really, that I wouldn't call that a plan. So yes, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Véronique, what did you self-publish?
Well, so a publishing game as service is very particular, I guess. And I think when I started to work for game as service team, it's kind of a no-brainer because it's an ongoing story, and when you ship the game, it's just the beginning of the story, and you hope it will last for decades. So basically, it really require a lot of interaction in order for you to continue to exhilarate your players and your fan. And I think that's one of the reasons why when I work at NCSoft or Hi-Rez Studio, we always prioritize self-publishing. I think, from the beginning of the development process, we are involved as publisher, and to your point, guys, is really more around, when we are in the prototyping or pre-production, it's really around, helping the studio to have the right knowledge about the market, the audience, what they want to do, which audience they want to reach, help with playtest, making sure you involve some panel of players. I mean, for Hi-Rez it's very easy because we have a pro league, so we have our pro players on site. So basically, all our small pro player get involved in any prototype game we're working on. So they start to play. They even testing gray map level just to give us feedback, making sure we're having the fun. And I think, for us, publishing game as service is really more involving the community from the beginning and growing and making the game with them. And that's always, be really like that. It's not like so much, our game is such a secret, we're not going to tell the world about it for years. We're actually, in prototype, we're starting to invite people to play the game. We have a handful of fans that help us, and actually it's quite positive because when you launch a game, those guys are evangelists. They're super loyal. They've been part of your production process. They feel like I own a bit of this game, and it's actually helping you to keep the long-lasting story. And so yeah, for me it's always been a no-brainer for a game as service. To have some team in-house. But as I said, when I initially joined Hi-Rez, I was like, ooh, you guys didn't really know what you were doing. But that's fine, we had good fun, and we're successful, We now, when I joined, we only have one game. Now we only had one studio. Now we have 5 internal studio we're publishing for, but they are internal, so.
Okay. And all those publishing role as opposed to game making roles, how much have you built internally? How much have you relied with partners? Do you get external help as well? Go ahead.
Okay, so to me, whether you're working with a publisher, I guess, which is already a partnership, or self-publishing, there's not that much that you can do on your own unless you get crazy talents that do everything, or you get a huge team. So yes, there's some level of playtest you can do internally, but there are companies that do it more properly, or if you want to do a playtest, I don't know, on a Chinese audience, unless you're really structured for it, I guess you will need a partner. So there's tons of partnership, which is often, I say, that's why I say a good relationship and a good partnership will be knowing what you know and what you're good at, and also acknowledging what you don't know. And it's the first step. That's where you have a lot of experience. Being sure that this is not what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to do QA necessarily. You're not supposed to translate in everything. You're not supposed to do your own playtest and so on. There's so much you can do internally, but there's things where, yes, it's going to cost. You need to find the right partner, but it's the value you receive from it is superior. But this requires a bit of experience. And yes, to be frank, there's so much we don't do internally. We still have a team, but we are, for example, in Dontnod, we are only 10 people doing certification, content review, and production follow-up, but we rely on dozens of various partners for various elements. Market studies also.
I would just like add one thing, because this is particularly true today, and I think at the time it was possible to, like, people were less had lower expectations, especially when you release in early access. Well, your game is bugged. Of course, there isn't any story mode and there isn't any multiplayer, but it's because it's early access. Right now, it's definitely not possible to send a game without like the basic functionalities and at least not that bugged, even if it's early access. So things changed a lot on this, I think. And there are still some examples of games that manage to do pretty much everything by themselves. But I agree that even at Shiro, like we didn't do like sound design and localization, but the rest was completely internally, and I don't think this is possible anymore.
Yeah, I think also, to your points, is like there is a lot of value to use expert for specific things, like going to Asian market or China, or if you need some, great information on market research and stuff like that, there are agencies that can help you. I usually use ICO partners. It's very good. No, but it's true. I mean, and like currently some of my team are working on a mobile game, and to be honest, we've done UA for live game for many years in my team and very effectively, but still there is a lot of things we don't know, and the last time we launched a game there was less of GDPR rules and you could track user more effectively. So to be completely honest, with my team, what we decided to do is to try to, we're using contractor to help us to learn, and to bring us back up to speed on what are the best way for us to tackle this market. And even if my team is very experienced in doing games, you cannot be an expert in everything. It's hard. We're all learning every day, and the market is changing so quickly. It's hard to keep track of every aspect. So I think that's why there is still a lot of value to use partners to help you sometimes to reach your goals, audience, market, whatever they are.
I see. Yep. I think you've. I'm just going through my prepared questions, and I realize we've kind of we've answered that kind of quite a bit already. But there's you've self-published games. Your companies have self-published games, and then you're also publishing other people's game now. So you've been successful doing it by yourself, but you see value in doing it for others. And I think my question is what has changed? What are the big changes that have driven to looking at being a publisher, basically? You've gone some months. I don't know if you have some other thoughts on that process, basically.
I think for us, the process of starting to publish other games came from people asking us how we did what we did with our regular games, I would say. And we realized at some point that it was nice to help people, but we could also monetize it. And so we created Shiro Unlimited in 2020, which now has signed 5 games, and we are about to release our first one in beginning 2023. I think that one of the things that really took us from the self-publishing to the other side was really that people are looking for a publisher that know what they're doing, and because we have the experience of developing games, we had the expertise, and I think it's going to be the same for both of you. But we had the expertise to understand exactly what their big problem are going to be, because we've been there, especially for first or second time projects. Again, we have people in-house that can, artistic directors, game designers, that can help and that can provide insight on a demo or something. So this it went pretty well, smoothly, I would say, in the global process of the company. And people who have been asked to intervene on outside projects are just so happy to be able to help other projects that were the one they're working on for the last 2 years. And okay, Dune is nice, but there's a lot of sand, and it's nice to see other things.
A bit more green? A bit more green? A bit more...
yeah, blue in this case.
Yeah, well, true. Xiavier?
So there's several elements to answer why we go to external publishing too. First, that was my own experience. I had as I said, worked in Ubisoft previously, and for 6 years I did that, third-party publishing, so I had some network, some knowledge about it, so it was always in the back of my mind. And second answer is what we're trying to do with Dontnod is to try to push an editorial vision about narrative games with meaningful themes and relatable characters. And I'm not saying we can't do it on our own, but I think we can do it better with others. It's very complementary. So for example, we just released Gerda, A Flame in Winter with Danish partners, and they had the same kind of approach, the same in design-wise, the same kind of values for the team, and we saw the game, the concept was a good fit, and we could really work with them to try to, and I think for our internal teams, it was a bit of fresh air to go sometimes a bit outside from the project and do a bit of consulting on the rest. That's where they enjoy it. And for the external partner, it's also, I mean, we are a good publisher in the sense that we know what the hardships of being a studio and trying to finish a game is, which some publishers don't know or don't care that much about.
So there's the shared pain.
There's a level of empathy that's a bit different.
Trauma. Yeah.
Or maybe no, really depends. But just as I said, understanding what COVID and work from home means from a studio perspective, because we've been through it. For example, I think some publishers that only see the business side of things, they just have a contract, like we have the experience. So it's a different conversation. And when a lot, as I said, is about independence, I think in publishing, the independence versus partnership. Like you want the expertise of someone else, but you want to remain free. But if you want others to work to invest energy, time, and talent in your project, it's not for free usually. So there has to be a balance there. And I think we've reached the right, when we have the same values and the same editorial vision, it helps. So we are not going to publish everything and anything, we are going to do our own thing, but really complementing our portfolio with different projects, the art style, the thematic, the characters that we were able to bring to the audience is something that would not have come up in our team right now. And so it goes faster. Something about our portfolio is about diversity. We can do more themes and more stories, more characters, and new voices, new creative voices, while still serving the editorial vision. So that was very interesting for us.
Okay, thank you. Véronique.
I don't. Yeah, we haven't really taken any external studio. I mean, we used to have, we published one studio, now we have 5 internal studios. If we ever do publishing for external, to what everybody was saying before, is we'll make sure it's a good match. I think for me, I have a lot of a strong opinion about values, and I will always make sure whoever we sign have the same value as us. So that will be really, and then it will be a good partnership, I guess, just based on that. And
is there some exchange between the 5 studios? Like, are they talking to each other, and do people change?
So actually, there is. It's funny because we have some games. So Smite has been there for 10 years. So it's a much older game, UE3. We have more recent game we launched our UE4, working on project on UE5. So obviously, we're trying to share a bit as well, the knowledge. All the games are different. On the publishing side of things, our publishing team work across all the games. So I have specific dedicated resources for specific studio, like the brand person, the community people will be specific to a studio. But on the commerce side, BI, BizDev, or lock, it will be shared, because I think you're learning a lot from experience. More especially the commerce team who help with monetization, they learn pattern and trend, and they try to apply some of their learning to the next game. Obviously, it's funny because we've launched about 5 game as service over the last past 6 years, and they all act differently. Obviously, it's different audiences, and it's always interesting to see how we can learn and apply some of the previous learning. Something very interesting as well is Smite is 10 years old, and the way we're monetizing the game is much stronger today than it was 3 years ago. So it's good to see that the more you work close to your audience and you understand and you grow with your audience, because those guys started to play the game 10 years ago, so they're slightly older now, they're 10 years older. But the more you work with them and stuff, you understand more what they're after, and you create the content with them, and you create something which are compelling. So, but yeah, at the moment, we don't do external buy.
But surely you had people coming to you, right?
Yes, we do.
A
Have
lot,
we checked?
yeah?
We had conversation. I did say no to a couple of projects because the background didn't fit really what we're doing, and yeah. But yeah, we have requests, and we've been having requests. The day we'll find the right people, the right partnership. I think it has to be a both way, like it has to come really genuinely, organically.
Did you see good games, but people you didn't like? That
it happens.
Okay. Yeah, because you're mentioning values.
Yeah, for me, value is very strong. I care a lot about how people behave in the workplace. And how people behave, generally speaking. I've been in this industry a long time ago. I started in 1999, and there was not many girls at the time, and it's been an interesting journey. But it's much better these days, so it's good. So yeah, value. I care a lot about values for me.
Okay, so looking a bit about the opportunities, do you think there are what would be the opportunities right now for self-publishing? You mentioned it's much more difficult than when you started, but do you think there's angles for a studio to still carve their own way in self-publishing?
Yeah, definitely. And there are kind of some indicators or KPIs, if you want, that you can follow just to know. And I'm talking now just about Steam, because usually when an indie dev starts, it's not going to be on PS4. But on Steam, if you see that your wishlist count starts really going higher and higher and higher, when I mean higher, it's going to be 40,000 and plus. There you can start thinking about self-publishing. And when I say self-publishing, it's not try to learn everything while ending your game. It's also maybe try to recruit somebody that has it's not always the cheap person, but it's the important person, somebody that knows the field, that knows the contact, that knows the good practices, especially when talking about algorithm on Steam and optimizing a Steam page, all the way to the release, the early access management, and of course, like how to lead a DLC campaign and try to find the right price for each of your products. Do you want cheap early access and everything? So there's a lot of things to learn, and trust me, like if you're a developer, you have a small team, 2-3 people, you have some traction. You can be a demigod like some are, but it's kind of difficult to learn. In addition, how to handle Discord, to handle the marketing, the community management, to build up your community, Steam forums, and everything that talks about Steam management. Like Steam, it takes a lot of time just to know that last week they changed the little square thing on the top of the screen, and that if you don't comply to what they've decided, your game will be less put it in like forward, which is sad. But yeah, so learning is important, of course, but sometimes it's it's going to be safer to hire somebody that knows how to do it. And I guess in 2022, it's going to be the safest way to access self-publishing. But yeah, to hire somebody that knows.
Okay.
So I think there was a a keynote earlier today about should you self-publish or not. So I would refer you to that because I think it was very on point. The question is, what is your plan? So if you want to self-publish just to be independent, just because you don't want to have anyone to answer to, it means, yeah, but are you ready to invest into having everything to do yourself, into having the talent? Like you don't want to do the partnership, you think you want to be independent, but then will you grow to have like your own community management, marketing and everything? Is it your plan? So if your plan is just to do games and have no one bother you, I'd say don't do self-publishing, because self-publishing is about publishing. It's not just about making the game. It's about doing everything else. So my advice there would be find the right partner for you to do what you don't want to do and still remain independent in what you're doing, rather than trying to do the job of someone else while you don't like it somehow. So if you want to remain independent and small, probably it means how much do you want to do? Do you want to, and how many different hats do you want to have? Do you want to be a small team that does everything, and then you need very experienced jack of all trades? Or do you want to be expert into doing a specific kind of game and so on? Then you should rely on experts that will do the rest of the thing. So it's more what is, in fact, the question. It's not just do I have someone to answer to, or am I independent? The question is more, what's your plan? What's your goal? And based on that, you need to find the right talents internally or the right partners externally to achieve your goals.
I think what Xiavier says is interesting for me. It feels a bit like, when we have all those big publisher who create their own platform, distribution platform. It's just a choice, they decided to create their own, distribution channel, and it's a focus, so it will require resources that as a team you will have to allocate, and the same for publishing. So if you want to invest and create those team, you should go. I think you will find great people. It will take time. You may learn in pain at the beginning, but it's completely feasible. It's feasible for everybody. Even my son is publishing his own game, you see. But he's learning in pain, and it's the time he's spending to optimize, his advertisement and trying to create the right asset to get his players to come try his game. His time is not focusing on improving his game. So it's a choice, but it's feasible. These days, with digital revolution, it's completely feasible. You don't have to have a sales team of hundreds of people to go on the road, as I was alluded to at the beginning. You can do it yourself, but it will take some time, money, and you can be free.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you take into account that, and please correct me if the numbers are wrong, of course.
I'm so sorry.
I think like seriously, like the number of people of time played grew by 50%, I think, between 2019 and 2020, which is there's a lot of place for a lot of game and a lot of players and a lot of games to be bought, and that's awesome, that's super cool. But also 50% of the game that have been released on Steam do less than 5,000 euros, was it dollars, was something like that, which is super sad because sometimes it's like projects people have spent a lot of time, and I'm really serious when I say that we spent as a scout activity. We spent a lot of time looking for games, for similar games, for trying to find the right partner. And when we find something that is important or interesting, we try to find people that have done similar things. And sometimes there are like concepts that are so brilliant and so well made, and the game has overwhelmingly positive reviews. But there's not written overwhelmingly positive on Steam, because this mention can just appear if you have, I think it's over 250 reviews, and the game only has 19 reviews. And it's really sad because the game has like 99% or 98% of positive, and it's just sad. So discoverability is so much difficult. It's very, very difficult today, and that's going to be the main challenge, I would say, when dealing with self-publishing. But yeah, you can try.
Yeah, so I think it's what you say with discoverability. It's still possible. It's just, is it very likely that you're going to be like the super hit you're trying to emulate somehow? Yes, those stories do exist, but they might not be the most likely outcome unless you have like the stroke of luck and the super genius and whatever. But you need also to plan for possible failure in this case. That's the cost of being independent. You want to do it yourself, but you need to, it will be your own success or your own failure also.
Thank you. I'd like to open maybe questions from the audience for the panel.
Don't be shy.
They mostly don't bite.
Yes?
I'm sorry I missed the first part, so maybe you already answered. What is the biggest mistake you did as self-publishing?
So what's the question is, what was the biggest mistake? I do it for the recording. The biggest mistake you made when self-publishing?
Well, but the mistake I saw when I joined Hi-Rez is they didn't know really how to localize games. So that was a big mistake. They were wasting a lot of money by not knowing, you know, what are the best practice, I think. So it's basically for me, in general, what I saw is waste of money. That's the biggest mistake you're making because you're not optimizing, you know, how you're doing your user acquisition. You're not optimizing your funnel. I mean, more especially for game as service, you need to really optimize your funnel. And if you're not optimizing that, you're wasting opportunity and wasting a lot of time. So yeah, that will be for me.
Okay. Well, so on my side, I'd say it really depends on each team. But on our side, when I joined Dontnod, I was a bit seen as like the good guy because self-publishing was, at least we're independent now. Before we had to work with partners, we had to do what they asked. Now we can do whatever we want. And so I think the mistake was presenting it this way. Like independence is being free and you can do whatever you want. No, it comes with strings attached. It comes with handling your own budget, putting your own rules. And I had some hard times to explain that self-publishing is not, there's still like a context and there's still constraints there's still milestones to deliver. When we book a playtest session, it's not okay to deliver the build 1 week later, things like that. that deadlines are not just something that external bad partners ask for. It's just the reality of the work. And I think it was a bit pitched like being independent is so nice. So I'd say it's here like there's something of maybe an adolescent thing in team to overcome. It's self-publishing is even more responsibility and not just total freedom.
I think, yeah, the biggest, well, it's a view from publishing side, so it's okay. I would say pricing. Pricing is super important, and if you miss the, it depends on a lot of different factors. You need to really carefully think about how you will manage your price. Especially if you're going to early access, because people have a lot like expectations that are very, very different in early access. And I think for what else we went too high for early access, $45 was too much for an early access. If I would do it again, it would be 29 and would go to 35 at official release. Because now we're not upping the price, because people already have a bad feeling about the game's price. Like right now, it really has the value. You know, it has 8 months of early access. There are almost 60 hours of gameplay, so it's pretty nice for $35. But at the time, it was pretty expensive. And the perception, I think it's really that changed the 96% positive review into a 91, which is not that bad, but still.
Thank you. Questions? Oui.
Yes, hello. Thanks for this moment. My question is, how big investment from console people like Game Pass can help to self-publish? Is it real, or anyway, Game Pass will go directly to a publisher anyway?
So yeah, can you expect funding for self-publishing through deals like Game Pass, or are the Game Pass deal more or less exclusive to established publishers?
Yes. Thank you.
No, you can definitely go to the Game Pass even if you're an e-dev and everything. It's just going to be difficult to have the door open for you. The only thing is that if you already have contacts from other jobs or that kind of stuff, it's going to be easier. What they usually do is that they see the game. If it fits, it's basically a question of editorial line at one moment. And when I say one moment, is that it really can change like 1 month to the other. They say that, oh no, for the next few projects, we really want to have something completely different than what we did before. But I would say for Game Pass, if you have a survival shooter, you can definitely go there, and they will say, okay, let's test the game if you have a demo. Yeah.
And so that change of editorial decision, is it that you need to sign that month, and then if you take too long to sign, then it goes away? Or is it a bit more consistent than that?
Honestly, the negotiation is going to be tougher and tougher the more the editorial line.
So sign
gets.
quick, if you can.
But
honestly,
depend of the deal. I mean, depend what they offer and what you get. To be honest, and as Adrien was saying, it's really. It's very specific on the moment, specific on the type of game you're doing. It's not super open to free-to-play games. So you know, if you have an opportunity, I think what is important as well with this type of deal is to try to gauge. Okay, they're gonna give me X, but if I would sell my game directly to these audiences, I will make X. So just gauge, what value you get, because it's not only just having a bunch of money from the platform. It might be less interesting, depending on what you're doing. Most of the time, they try to make those deals juicy across all the different platforms, So like that, you have a lot of above-the-line marketing and stuff like that, including into the deal, which for you is a great opportunity because it's potentially million you will have to spend on Xbox or PlayStation to get those visibility. So it's a matter of gauging, the opportunity and based on the type of game you're doing. Sorry.
No worries.
I
Very interesting.
jumped. I'm sorry.
So I think, yes, it can be very volatile in terms of amount and in terms of editorial decisions. So there's this, and then it really depends on when do you need it, how advanced is your game. Is your game already finished and you were about to publish it? So then how long do you have to take the decision? What can you show for it? There's a lot of elements that can change, and so how much time are you ready to dedicate to that somehow versus having a partner that does it for you? So it's always the same. Is it your strength? Is in your strength to go into negotiating with the first parties, and you have time slotted for that, to find the right moment and the right pitch with the right people, or do you want to focus your energy on something else? So really, it depends. If you are at the point where you finish the games and you only have selling it to do, somehow it means you're no longer a developer and you're going into full publishing mode, I would say. So if that's how you work, then yes, it's still an opportunity. But if you have the next project to think about, then maybe someone else can handle that for you.
And maybe one little thing to take into account is that Microsoft is not really against like the fact of being on the PC gaming store and like the Windows gaming store and Steam at the same time. They like the amount of money that you'll get is going to be bigger but in the proposition, having a sim release on Game Pass and Steam is completely doable. It's going to be less money, but still, it's doable. Just one thing to know is that usually, and it's not going to be mandatory for release, but they will ask you an Xbox version at some point. So be ready to do the porting. It's not always easy.
Thank you. I just want something, Véronique, can you explain above the line and below the line? Quickly?
No, my lawyer told me to not say. No, I mean the guys need to make some research.
That's fine. Okay. More questions? Stuart, yeah. Anything? You all good? Thank you. Then.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.